Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm here with Imam Khalil Cave, the Imam of the BVI Islamic Society. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you. Glad that you came. There's been, of course, some issue about the BVI Islamic Society building a mosque in Horsepath. I saw it on BVI National Forum.
Right.
It's hard the picture, the model of the picture of the mosque is quite attractive mosque. Before we get into the issues surrounding the building of the mosque in the Horsepath community, I just want to get a little background on for people who may not know, what is Islam about? Because Islam has developed a negative stigma over the years.
That's right.
As a result of some of the fighting and so on going on in the Middle East, and Muslims being labeled as terrorists and blamed for many of atrocities that's been going on over the world and regarding the killing of innocent people and so on. I mean, how do you not defend that, but what's your relationship to Islam and that particular type of situation? Tell us a little bit about the tenets of Islam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, it's a very good question you asked, and I'm happy to take the opportunity to educate the people of the BVI in this regard. First of all, the word Islam means attaining peace through submission. So, throughout our lives as Muslims, these two aspects must be ever present. Submission to the Creator, as well as finding peace through doing that. So, what you may find in terms of the global image of Islam is not exactly what Islam really entails as a way of life. More so because Islam is basically a continuation of that way of life that was lived by all the prophets of God Almighty. Be it Abraham, be it Moses, be it Jesus, all these great personalities. So when we speak of Islam, we speak of that lifestyle, that way of life that they represented. Now, if there are a few persons who are either motivated by politics or some sort of a vendetta, and they are carrying out acts in the name of Islam, really and truly, it is not Islam that they are representing, but they are representing themselves or their own cause.
And their political views and ambitions.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, you mentioned prophets like Abraham and Moses and Noah and Jesus and so on. We look at those as Christian prophets and Christian people of God. I mean, how does Islam embrace those personalities?
Right. So these prophets were not sent by themselves. They were sent by the Creator. And as Muslims, we believe that none is worthy of worship but the Creator. And this is basically the backbone of Islam, that no one should worship idols or any form of creation. Rather, we worship the Creator. So all of those personalities that you just mentioned, this is what they call towards. This is why, for example, you look at the story of Moses when he came back to his people, the Israelites, and he found them worshiping a calf.
Yes.
All right. He was so infuriated by what he saw, because obviously they were worshiping a creation instead of the Creator. So this is exactly what we as Muslims embrace, and whether it is viewed as being in alignment with what the Christians say or the Jews say. So we as Muslims, we are happy to say that the lifestyle and the message that those prophets represented, that is what we also embrace and represent. So there is no distinction between what Muslims call towards and what those prophets call towards.
But is in the Muslim God, just like how the Christian God is Jesus, is in the Muslim God Muhammad?
No, of course not. So Muhammad was a man just like you and I, and all the prophets were sent by him, sent by God Almighty Himself, and we do not, as Muslims, we do not worship Muhammad. Neither did the disciples of Jesus worship Jesus, because Jesus Himself, He taught them how to pray. And when He taught them how to pray, like for example, you probably know the Lord's Prayer, So Jesus prayed not to Himself because He wasn't God, but He prayed to the Christians refer to today as the Father. So likewise, the followers of Moses also didn't worship Moses, but they worshiped the God of Moses, the God of the entire universe. So the Muslims also, Muhammad is an example. He's a prophet of God, just like Jesus, just like Moses, Abraham, and so on and so forth. So we do not worship Muhammad. As a matter of fact, if someone says, I'm a Muslim, and he claims that, I worship Muhammad, that person is not a true Muslim, because he has not met the conditions and the requirements of being a Muslim, which is every Muslim should believe in Arabic it is the words are La ilaha illallah, which is none is worthy to be worshipped besides God Almighty Himself. So even Muhammad is not deserving to be worshipped.
Is the Christian God and the Muslim God the same?
Should be.
Oh, okay. What are the principles? We talking about in terms of the tenets. What are the principles of Islam? What makes Islam? What are the core values that Islam expounds?
So Islam establishes the very values that even as Christians, Christians also embrace, the values in terms of morals, etc. However, we try to break it down in some more details, that Islam is basically to establish a relationship with the Creator and be of service, be of kindness towards the creation. So in our efforts to be good Muslims, we have to always strike that balance. Be dutiful to the Creator through serving Him, through worshipping Him only, and also, along with this, establish a peaceful relationship with the creation of God Almighty, which doesn't only narrow down to human beings, because I always use this example. In Tortola is the first place I've came to and saw so many wild chickens just crossing the road.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a pleasant sight sometimes to see, with the mother hen is just crossing the road with her baby chicks. I always tell my followers in the mosque, my congregation, that these chickens, they are also the creation of God Almighty. And you are not a true Muslim until you even respect them also. So if you see them crossing the road, do not just allow yourself to be desensitized by maybe being late for your job or something and just crush them. No. They also deserve respect, because a true Muslim is one who will be dutiful towards his Creator and also be kind and mindful of the creation that exists around him.
Okay. Now, to get to the mosque, you want to build a mosque. Now, the Islamic Society has been worshiping on right off Main Street for many years, and it seems as though it is grown. About how many Muslims you estimate that we have here in the BVI?
We have not done any count of late, but we estimate that there's over 300 Muslims here, some of whom are from this very island, some of whom migrated. But basically, we have people of different nationalities here in the BVI that make up the Muslim population. But it's in excess of 300.
So you see on the Muslim days of worship, what are the Muslim days of worship? The Muslim worship on Sunday or Saturday?
Muslims worship every single day because we have to, as as a compulsory part of Islam, we have to pray 5 times every day. But our main day when we congregate is on Friday during the midday period. That's where we have like our main lecture for the week.
Okay. So on that day, well, how much you estimate comes to the mosque?
Between men and women, just about 80 persons. So it fluctuates basically. But some, because we lack the space right now, I've not seen more than like 65 to 70 persons basically. But I've been told that there were occasions when more people came out, because we also have persons that are working on the cruise ships. They also disembark sometimes at that time on Friday, and they also join us in prayers. There are many Muslims who are working on those cruise ships from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and these places. So whenever they join us in prayers on Friday, it is usually just around 80 to 80 persons.
Okay. Now you want to build a new masjid?
Well, we don't have a mosque, so it's basically we are seeking to establish a place we call home as Muslims, but not only with prayers in mind. What the Muslims of the BVI are really trying to we are actually intending to do is establish a place that is of benefit also for everyone, not only Muslims. So in that drawing that you would have seen, the upper floor is the prayer place, which is a pretty decent space. But then the second floor, the middle floor, that is where we have lots of plans for example, integrating the local community in workshops and other events that we would use to promote not Islam but general well-being of everyone in Tortola.
So what kind of programs then are you hoping to have in the mosque?
Well, we are hoping to first of all establish a center for learning for the youths, especially in the field of history as well as technology. So we're hoping to have a computer room where we can offer free computer training. Also, we are making available to the public that opportunity to learn the Arabic language, because today in today's world the Arabic language is no longer a language that is just for the Arabs. Throughout the world, this language, even if you travel through airports today, you will see signs in the Arabic language. So that is part of our plans also, and programs for women. We intend also to have professional counseling for families, whether they are Christian, Muslims, whoever they be, for all walks of life basically.
And what about children?
So the previous aspect that I mentioned was basically catering for children as well as young adults.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you want to build a mosque in Horsepath.
Yeah.
Now Horsepath, as far as I know, and even though I go to Horsepath periodically, I don't really know the community that well. It's on the hillside. The mosque is going to be on the hillside.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually mosques on flat land. I mean that's my view. I don't know. I might be
That's
wrong.
right.
Yeah. Is that going to be a challenge, particularly with packing and having a lot of activity in the community?
In terms of having a lot of activities in the community, we do not, as Muslims, want to confine ourselves to the mosque and our activities to the mosque, because we want to reach out to all communities, throughout the BVI, and reach out to them, educate them about Islam, as well as offer whatever assistance we can to the people that we live around. And I'm not basically saying that there wouldn't be some traffic in there. There would be traffic, from time to time, but the engineer as well as the architect, they would have more knowledge of the parking issues and traffic congestion and stuff like this. I wouldn't have this sort of information. But what I can say is that we have gotten some feedbacks from the people around, and we have met with people, and they have brought some genuine concerns. And we as Muslims, it is our obligation to listen to them and to accommodate them, because every one of us, we desire to have good neighbors around us. And like the residents, like every one of us, the residents of Horsepath will see us as their neighbors also, should we be able to build a mosque there. So we will also want to have and establish a good relationship with our neighbors. We know we would like to make them uncomfortable. So I think, so far we have been very open and accommodative to, all the concerns that have been thrown out there. And, these issues obviously will be dealt with, by our board. We have a board, as well as, this board they're working, basically along with the engineer and the architect. So, if it comes to that, they'll be able to offer more information and details on this subject.
Okay. I want to talk about some of the issues that you mentioned that the community has regarding the building of the mosque in the Horsepath area. Right after these words from our sponsors, we're going to come back and we're going to go into some of those issues. Keep it locked right here. The Spotlight will be right back after these words from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.
Welcome back to Spotlight. If you've just joined us, I'm having a conversation with Imam Khalil Cave. He's the Imam of the BVI Islamic Society. And we are talking now about the issues facing the society, the Islamic Society and the BVI, regarding the building of a mosque in Horsepath. Imam, what are some of the issues that you've encountered from the community regarding the building of the mosque?
I'll be quite frank on this subject. The people that I've spoken to, they have not in any way shown any resentment towards the Muslims, or they are not in opposition to this project. And I find that the person that I've spoken to are very open, and it convinces me basically that there are people out there that are they're not biased. This island does have people with lots of love in their hearts. So I cannot speak about those who maybe they're in opposition to the project, but how I feel inside with regards to the people who I have met out there regarding this subject, they have been very open, and I think it would be unfair for me to highlight the issues, since I've not I've seen a few comments on the internet and so on, but they were not legitimate ones. I guess we would have to go directly to the residents in that area and have have a good audience with them to listen to their comments.
So no residents in Horsepath have come to this Islamic Society, or to you personally, or to any of the members who communicate with that community and say to them, listen, we don't want this mosque here because it's going to be too noisy. It's not going to be enough parking space. It's going to be congestion in the area. We're not going to be able to get through when you guys are worshiping 5 times a day, and on Fridays and so on, and with the noise, with the potential noise and the traffic, and in this small community with the narrow roads and on the hillside.
That's right.
You haven't gotten any of those complaints and those issues?
No one has. None of the residents have come directly to us, but based on the comments we have seen on the internet, when the article was published, we know that people do have some of these concerns. And
but have you gone out in the community trying to see?
We are just about to mobilize a group of brothers who will go to each and every resident to listen to their concerns and to basically educate them about this project, and hopefully we will get some very positive response from them. I know it's in the heart of everyone to want the best for their family and for the environment, and this is everyone's right, and we are happy to actually reach out to them and listen to their comments and their whatever concerns they have. So we are just about to planning to go out and meet with some of the residents, and hopefully we get a good feedback from them, and we are able to address some of their concerns. But since the opportunity is given, I can just brief everyone and how Muslims actually worship. First of all, our mosque is, the word mosque is English. The word in Arabic is masjid. It basically means a place where you prostrate. Because our prayers is done with lots of movements such as bowing and prostrating. Apart from that, our prayers are done silently, and in some instances it is done in an audible way. Nevertheless, it's just myself, the Imam, who actually recites the Quran through the prayers. So it's not the entire congregation that are reciting the Quran or singing or doing any of these things while the prayers is going on. I'm reciting passages of the Quran and they're listening. That's basically how we pray.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from that, we do not have any instruments and so on as part of our prayers, and neither do we sing and so on. By the way, this is not an insult to those who do it. This is just the way we pray. So in terms of noise nuisance, that cannot be an issue. And in terms of the people who come to the mosque, how they will conduct themselves, that is something that we'll also have to put into perspective. So, for example, the mosque is not a place where we will have any activities like drinking or partying or having weddings and all of these things. It's just strictly for prayers and education, right? So, in terms of that's in terms of what we do in the mosque. In terms of the traffic, those are concerns that that the engineers and everyone else who is attached to the project, they're working on, and so we're basically preparing ourselves to address the concerns of the community, and we welcome these concerns that they have been throwing out. So it's something that we will address very soon, basically.
Okay, because I was under the impression that there were lists of concerns, and so I'm surprised to hear that it's like a formal representation weren't made to the
residents,
the community, the Muslim community, to say, listen, we understand you're going to build a masjid here. We object to this masjid being here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 reasons. You've had nothing like that from the community.
We have not had any such thing.
Okay. Now you had your plans already drawn up.
Yeah, we
you submitted them to the town and country planning.
Exactly.
I understand that those plans were not approved.
That's right.
What was the reason given that for the plans not being approved?
I'm not in possession of the letter that provides such details. But what I would like to say is that we are not the first people to have their drawings or plans rejected. We know that there are many people out there who are not Muslims who have submitted plans to construct their own home, and it was not approved at first instance. So I think it'd be very unfair for any member of our community to feel slighted by our drawings not being approved of. We have to obviously follow the laws of this land, and we have to meet certain requirements. So once we're able to meet all of these requirements, and then our drawings are not approved, then the next step we take is that we would like to ask as to why we are not able to build if these requirements were met. If these requirements weren't met, then we will try to meet them. If they can't be met because of the location, then I'm sure we as a community we will go back to the drawing board and possibly contemplate on maybe shifting a location to somewhere else that is more suitable to for the construction of such a building. This is a possibility. We're not just going out there and say, okay, we're gonna establish this mosque here and not consider our surrounding and the residents in the area. No, this is not what we are representing.
Okay. You watching Spotlight with my guest, Imam Khalil Cave, the Imam of the BVI Islamic Society, and we're talking about some of the issues that arise out of the proposed building of a masjid in the Hospat area. The phone numbers and the text number is going to pop on the screen any moment now. And we're going to open up the lines if you want to call, make a representation, ask a question, make a comment or suggestion. Please feel free to do so. So the town and country planning gave the community, the Islamic community, Islamic society, a list of things that need to be done, or corrections that need to be made on the drawings.
As I said to you before, I'm not in possession of this letter, but I know that a letter was sent back to the community. Matter of fact, it was forwarded to the community from via the architect. So this is all I know, and I don't have any details with regards to that letter.
Okay. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. You're on Spotlight. Speak to me.
Yes, good evening. I'm surprised that Imam says he doesn't have a copy of the letter. When we the landowners and property owners in Hostat have a copy, and our concern is the same as the town and country planning. Do you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Because when you try to turn around in Hostat and cars are parked on the side of the road, you have to drive all the way down to the entire taxi lake house and turn around there. Secondly, when we bought that land, we bought it as a residential, it was sold as a residential community.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that is, and another point that you said that we didn't, and you made a point that we didn't go to them, they didn't come to us either. They didn't come to us either, but the residents and the landowners in Hostat, we have signed a petition, every single house owner as far as I know, there may be one or two who didn't sign, but we have signed a petition objecting to it on the basis it is unconjust. We have nothing against religious liberty. You worship where you want, but it's a residential area, and parking is already a challenge. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much for calling. So, hello, you there? All right. She's gone.
So first of all, with regards to the letter, I am the imam, basically the person that is in charge of religious affairs. We also have a board that takes care of the administration of the community. So these two entities run, even though our objectives are the same, but we run separately. So we not mix the religious affairs with the administration aspect of the community. In other words, I do not have a final say. I do not have anything to do with the functioning of that board or administration, basically. So that is just basically to explain to our dear sister what I said.
But her concern would be that as an imam, you would be, I don't know, a member of the board, and you would, you would want to know, well, why isn't my masjid approved? And you would say, let me see what the town and country planning has said. That would be, I'm thinking for her.
Okay.
Any reasonable person, I think, would expect the imam to know, or the pastor to know, or the priest to know what's happening with their church. Why the government reject our plans, and what we need to do to make sure that we get that corrected. And that's what the challenge that she's having with that statement.
But basically, word would have gotten back to me as the imam that our plan was not approved, and not as a document in front of me, but as words that were told to me that these are some of the concerns. But you asked previously if I had a list of these concerns. So I have an idea that parking, etc., but not as per se a list in front of me, maybe on my desk saying these are the concerns.
But
so we have a general idea, but I'm not in possession of that letter as someone may think.
Okay, but your general idea is that from the town and country planning, they are concerned about traffic congestion
Yeah.
and parking, and that seems to be what the community is also concerned about as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's reasonable because the roads in Horsepath, but by virtue of the name Horsepath,
Yeah.
you know, the roads are narrow, and you're on the hill, and turning around is a challenge. And certainly that would be.
As I said before,
Yeah.
you know, we are not in disagreement. Like the first caller, you know, these are genuine concerns. How can I be so so unmindful of, you know, her concerns? You know, when I myself, if I was living in Horsepath, I'd probably be thinking the
You
same
have
way.
the same concern.
Yeah, I'd be probably
Yes.
having the same concerns.
And so we're going to address that and see how if that could be resolved.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. You're on Spotlight. Speak.
Yes, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Peace and blessings to you, fellas.
Yes,
I
peace
just
and
want
blessings,
to-
brother.
I just want to ask a question. Now, we are living in a part of the world where the custom of Muslims is not popular. Most of us around this part of the Caribbean, we were born and raised, and we were taught about Jesus, and you know, very different from the Muslim custom. I just heard Imam mention that part of their
Their worship?
part of what they want to do in that business is to teach and educate people, young people, about Muslim and so on and so on. I'm wondering, how would that be well received here in the BVI?
All right. Thank you for my brother for calling. You got a question?
Yeah. Well, growing up in the Caribbean, we all would have done some social studies, but not in detail, obviously. So we all would have had some idea about religions because, as a subject, religion is taught in social studies. However, you know, as Muslims, integrated into this society, you know, we are not closing our doors, or we do not intend to close our doors and say, well, we are going to worship in this little space. All we're concerned about is our own selves. No, we're not going to do this. Because throughout the world, wherever Muslims have traveled, they have integrated into their society, and they have also given the opportunity to others to understand who they are. Because, you know, it's very simple. We are part of your society. We also want you to know who we are, so that if you have doubts about us, those doubts could be removed. If you have concerns about us, then we can address your concerns, etc. Even though Islam is not popular in the BVI, for example, I've been here for almost 3 years, and there are many of our local children that have Muslim names. Amazing names from the Quran. You know, I've been, you know, because I play soccer, you know, in the local league here, as well as, you know, from time to time I also play basketball with some of the guys, and I'm surprised sometimes. I'm wondering, you know, actually if I'm actually in one of the African countries, or even in one of the Arab countries, because there are so many guys that have Muslim names, you know. But it's just that we do not know that these names are Muslim names, or these names are Arabic, and from the Quran, actually, not only Arabic, but from the Quran also. So we are, you know, basically gearing up ourselves to go out there and say, look, we are no stranger to your community. You have names that belong to Islam, to Arabic, to the Quran. So, you know, like that, we'll be able to, you know, become popular in the sense that people will understand who we are, they'll understand our mission, and maybe if there is any sort of aggression out there towards Muslims in Toronto, it will be removed. This is what we're hoping to achieve by integrating, you know, with the local population through Islam.
We got to take a break. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. Keep it locked right there to Spotlight.
Spotlight is brought to you by Virgin Island Motors, Tortola Concrete Limited, Bolo's High Tech Printery, and H. Lavity Stout Community College.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm having quite an interesting discussion here with Imam Khalil Cave, the Imam of the BVI Islamic Society. the society that's intending to build a masjid in Horsepath, meeting some resistance. And as we heard from one caller, the primary concern is that Horsepath is a residential community. And as I know, going up the Horsepath, by virtue of the name Horsepath, the streets are narrow. And being on the hill, turning around and maneuvering could be sometimes treacherous and so on. And the concern of congestion and traffic in the area, as you yourself have admitted, is a concern that you would have.
Yeah.
How would you mitigate that situation? Is that something that that the engineers are looking at, how to provide parking for the amount of people that you expect to come there? Is a land? How big is the land?
From what I was told, it's close to half of an acre.
A half an acre.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any idea of what can be done? Because this seems to be something that you also not going to have to meet the residents with, but you have to meet the town and country planner with as well.
Well, I'm not sure what the board will do, but if I may, be allowed to speak on their behalf, I'd probably say that very soon we plan to put together a team to approach the authorities as well as the residents on this issue. And we are not approaching this issue with a forceful mentality that, look, we have to granted our wish, or it's either my way or the highway. We're not going to take this approach, and we are not supposed to. All right. Initially, before we actually thought of building there, we had approached the engineers and the architects, and as a matter of fact, they were the ones who give us some hope that it can happen. Okay. So in terms of logistics, they think it can happen, and if they have to make changes, then that will be on them. I'm not in that field. I have very little.
Your limited knowledge on
idea of what's going to happen there.
Let's take this call. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Speak. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. Caller. Okay. We've lost that caller. Please call us back. If it is that you're not able to get adequate parking for the perceived needs or the projected needs of the masjid, are you willing, say, to sell that piece of land and look for another piece of land someplace else where it would be more accommodating and serve the purpose better?
I would imagine, that being a possibility, should it, come to a situation where we're unable to build. We want to have a mosque, where we can worship and conduct our programs. So the question here is, if we're not able to build there, then are we can just remain on Chowell and old Main Street? No.
Are you going to force the issue? Are you going to force the issue?
I doubt. We are looking to have a peaceful resolution to this entire issue. So, as I said to you before, we are willing to make our considerations, and it doesn't mean that, if it can be built, we wouldn't build. But if it's impossible, then, we would be happy to relocate to a more suitable location. Because the whole idea is about having a mosque, not having a mosque in Horsepath.
Right.
Okay?
That happens to be the land that you have.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's take this call. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. Go right ahead, please. You're on Spotlight. Speak. Speak. Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, my brother.
Yes,
I'm just calling to make a comment in here.
Yes.
Because concerning the mosque building in Horseback, I just have my, I'm just wondering, are these the real issues that we're talking about, or is there something else hidden? Because, to be honest, we're talking about the parking itself. The parking is much bigger than the current parking, and it's farther than Main Street. That means, hello?
Yes, the parking is the parking is what? Say that again.
Yes, I'm just saying that the parking in the new mosque, that is planned to be up to 25 cars, which is twice bigger than the current parking. So parking is not an issue.
It's quite bigger than what?
It is twice as big as the current parking right now,
Uh-huh.
which is 25 cars, which is not a real issue.
Okay.
The second concern about being a residential area, we all know Horseback is not a residential area anymore. And the third concern about the noise, you can just make a little survey in Main Street. Is there any of our current neighbors annoyed by a noise that has been done in the past 15 years?
Okay, so the noise cannot be an issue based on the way that you worship and what activities you're going to have there. You say Horsepath is not a residential area. What do you mean by that? Because it's mostly residents, mostly people living there, and they're mostly homes. When you say it's not a residential area, what do you mean?
I mean, there's prayer over there right now. It is.
There's what? Say that again. Hello? I'm trying to... Carla, you still there? Seemed like we lost that caller. He said it's not a residential area. You familiar with Horsepath?
Somewhat.
And I know Horsepath to be lots of homes, buildings. I don't know. Maybe I think I know of one little grocery store that's there. I know there's a radio station that's operated out of a home there. But by and large, you wouldn't call Horsepath a commercial area. I mean, so I'm trying to get a sense of your views on the relationship in Horsepath in terms of commercial activity and residential activity.
I live in Lower State, next to the Simmons Preschool, and just on the corner there is a church.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, Pastor Hoyt and I are, pretty good friends. I meet him often, and we have a very good relationship. And there's a church in the corner, and throughout times in the week, they would have their service. And matter of fact, I would even listen to their service at times.
Mm-hmm.
On Sundays also, when he would preach, I would listen to the message, because we as Muslims believe that any word of wisdom that is provided, whether it is from a Muslim or whoever it's from, you should accept it, because it's a word of truth. So, and many times when he would make a mention of things, and matter of fact, I would be in agreement with a lot of the things that he would say. Apart from that, they would play music and beat their drums and so on. And we as Muslims are taught to be tolerant towards other religions, and as a result, if it's on a Sunday morning and I wanted to take some a little nap, I would not say, well, he doesn't have the right to run his church, because I'm also representing a religious body. So for me, it's not a problem. This is not to say that the residents of Horsepath should not have any such concerns. They should. But it's upon us now to educate them and to let them know exactly, the nature of what we are bringing into their community. And even though it would be considered as a residential area to some, others think it's not exclusively a residential area. So I think the last caller was making reference to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not exclusively a residential area, just as the area that I'm living in.
Mm-hmm. and the question becomes: are there any? Since we don't have zoning laws, are there any exclusive residential areas in the BVI?
Exactly.
That would
also be
the
question.
Yeah. Well, we found out that we need a clock. You know, but it's certainly an interesting discussion. And so what is next for the Islamic Society regarding the mosque? What are you doing right now, and what are your plans going forward?
Well, we are, we are basically consulting with, experts in this regard and trying to get feedbacks from the public, as well as take the advice of some of our local friends who may have some more insight into this. And when we would have come to a conclusion in this regard, we would definitely, have an update to offer, as well as presently the drawing is with the tribunal, and we are praying and hoping that it is passed and approved of. Obviously, if we have to make some changes, then we are prepared to do so. If there are concerns, we are prepared to address those concerns. And I think this is, the best way to move forward. Obviously, we as a Muslim community would be so happy and so elated to have a mosque. And the architecture of a mosque, as you would have seen, is one that usually stands out, wherever. So, that being a part of the community in itself helps to add to the diversity that this island represents. So we are hoping that, should it be approved of, to be built right there, then, we'll be happy, to have it built there.
Yeah. One of the concerns raised by the last caller, and I gotta go, but one of the concerns raised by the last caller is whether there are really other underlying issues, and that residential area and parking challenges and congestion challenges are really not the real issues, but they are underlying issues. Do you feel as a community that you're meeting resistance because you are Muslim and because the society is a predominantly Christian society?
I would not be surprised if this happens, because I think in all countries, the minorities are always looked upon when, they intend to do something. All right. In some countries, it's not the Muslims; it's probably the Buddhists. Maybe it's the Christians, because in a Muslim country, the minority will be Christians, and obviously, the local population who are Muslims and they're the majority, they would obviously look upon the Christians and say, well, you guys are moving in to build a mosque. But generally, in an Islamic country, all religions are allowed to build and practice also. But in terms of the public, they would always have their genuine concerns, and they will always have reasons to oppose. And this is something I think is widely done throughout the world. I recall it's in Norway. I think it's in Norway, Switzerland. Muslims had bought a synagogue, I think it was, or a church, and converted into a mosque. But then they wanted to add to the current structure a dome and a minaret, which is symbolic of a mosque. And the local population there, they were in strong opposition to it. They were saying, no, we don't have a problem with you building having a mosque, but then your architecture must not change, our skyline.
Yes. So you expect these kind of challenges.
Yeah, we do.
And you're willing to work with the community to resolve the issues.
We are very much prepared to work with the community. That's what we are here for, and that's our basically one of our part of our mission statement.
Imam Khalil, thank you very much for coming.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much also for hosting me, and it's a wonderful opportunity.
And hopefully we can get some update and have you back to talk about some of the other issues and perhaps some of the work you're doing in the community.
Definitely.
Certainly, I think everybody will agree that the community needs assistance from persons who can make offerings, particularly regarding our young people.
Definitely, most definitely.
Okay. Spotlight, of course, is rebroadcast every Sunday afternoon at 2:30, and you can view Spotlight on demand at jtvlive.net. I want to thank you for watching. Those of you that call and ask your questions, I thank you for participating in the discussion. You can continue to email me at jtvspotlight@yahoo.com with your criticisms, concerns, topics, ideas, encouragement, whatever you like. I'll be happy to hear from you. I'm Mejuenka, reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessing.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.